Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. How you doing? You okay? Alhamdulillah, I'm okay by Allah's grace and mercy. I was fine and then I wasn't. So forgive me as I fidget a little bit. Bismillah. Sorry about that. There we go. والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وحبيبنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. If I were to ask you, what would you say is your definition of taqwa? If you were to, think about it and say, this is what taqwa is for me, it's this thing, what would you say? I'm going to ask my brothers first because, mashallah, tabarak rahman, there's so many of you, so I'm going to ask for my brothers first. What would be your definition of taqwa? Being present and aware with the religious reality. Yes. Anybody else? Anybody else? Bismillah. Everybody consider.
Seeing Allah in everything.
Seeing Allah in everything you do. Seeing Allah in everything you do. Subhanallah. Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barik sayyidina habibina mawlana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. So in this definition of taqwa, literally it should be something that we're so familiar with, you know your own name, like you know your own name, right? It should be taqwa, it should be something that's so, quick in our vocabulary that it's like reciting Fatiha. It's easy, right? Because literally, whoever is hoping for a meeting with their Lord, taqwa is literally the door. And what I mean by this, when I say whoever's hoping for this meeting, meaning that if you recognize that this dunya is temporary, is there anybody that you know is getting out of this dunya alive? Nobody. No one and nothing is getting out of this dunya alive. Right? And no one could exactly tell you whether they're Muslim or they're not. Now, the Muslims, alhamdulillah wa shukrillah, we have an answer for where were you before this? What was your reality before you arrived in the dunya? There's no chance that you were nothing. There's no chance of that. Because all that you arrived with, all the knowledge you came here with, all the things you knew how to do, to drink, to eat, to sleep, nobody taught you those things. So there's a reality that you know existed before here. Right? And so for us, subhanAllah, and we all recognize you're not getting out of here alive. And you couldn't stop it if you wanted to. If we could stop it anytime that our loved ones, subhanAllah, are on the deathbed, we would immediately say, no, stop. I command them to live for however long. I have decided that now is not the time. I'm ready not to part with them. Right? We would make that decision. But no one ever will, has that ability. That even, subhanAllah, when Nabi Allah Musa alayhi salam, when the angel of death came to Nabi Allah Musa, he slapped him. I know you're like, what? Yes. He slapped him so hard that he injured his eye. That the angel of death went to complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Rabbi, you see what he did to me? You see what your prophet did to me? Right? And he said, okay, Allah comforted him. I'm sorry. Let me repair it for you. What happened? He said, Ya Allah, he told me that he's not, he literally questioned me. Like, don't you see the state that I'm in? Don't you see the state of my people, the state of the condition? Don't you see them in this state? Right? Like, you think this is the time, this is the moment for you to approach me with death? That's not the moment. Now, I know all of you wish you could do that, right? All of this, you're like, we could say that? First of all, have you heard the description of the angel of death? It's crazy. Like his description, subhanallah, His description alone, most people will just tremble upon seeing him. Let alone the courage of Musa to argue with him and then to hit him. I'm like, first of all, obviously your reach is not like my reach, right? Obviously your your hitting is not like my hitting. But this, subhanallah, bihamdi, subhanallah, this is hitting with some spiritual power. So then Allah says, okay, no problem. Go back and ask him that if he's not ready, he has an ox with him. Tell him, put his hand underneath on the back of the ox. And I will, if he doesn't want to go now, then the amount of hairs that's underneath his hand, that's how many more years I will give him. Now, you know the hairs of an ox or an animal, they're like tiny, tiny hairs underneath, all kinds of intertwined. So even Musa, he looked at it. He said, nah, that's all right. That's too many. Because even after a while, even the thought of being in this dunya too long becomes like an unbearable thought. That the thought of literally removing from this body, removing from the constraints of the dunya, becomes something that we all recognize. I cannot be constrained by this dunya, which literally says that to you by your nature, there's something that literally my ruh needs, that my soul needs, and that this body in this realm is too confining. But the ruh is what? The ruh is that portion, that is that connection, that uncreated essence between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala literally commanded something for you to be. Right? And only Allah azza wa jal, see, the angel of death separates the ruh from the body, but only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can actually take your soul. Only Allah azza wa jal has that ability. More on that. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about the definition of taqwa first. Put what I just said on the back burner. We'll get to death and the angel of death and the rule. We'll get to all of that later. That for the next 2 days, inshallah, I hope that we'll be together. We're talking about taqwa and resilience. Right? We're talking about taqwa and sabr, really. Where these two things, that if you have them combined, you're going to have what, like, unshakable faith. You're going to be an unshakable creature. But if you have one without the other, you're going to be lacking. One without the other, you're not going to be unshakable. You'll be good, you know, you'll have some religiosity, but you won't be fortified. So taqwa is to have a level of love and awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that causes you to be scrupulous in your worship, to be scrupulous in your life, to be scrupulous in all of your affairs, in all of your dealings with yourself, with your people, with the world. It causes you to say, I see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every single breath. I recognize the one that's already gone, the one I took a minute ago is finished. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me for whatever I did in those seconds before. And even this one, I don't fully own it, except what's going to count for me is the part that I mentioned Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what I did for his sake. And the ones that are coming are not promised. So how I spend this particular moment, right? That's what I have. That's what I have. Sorry. So in addressing this issue of taqwa and our personal relationships, for the Muslim, there is no personal growth without taqwa. For the one who believes, there is no understanding of personal growth with the absence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the helm. In the front, in the back, on the top, in the middle, on the outside, in every single aspect, there is none. It's all empty. Because you're going to be growing yourself for what? To please people? they're dying too. Even if you were to develop yourself on to get this kind of job or to make this level of money, for what purpose do you want that money? For what purpose do you want that job? What are you going to do with it? I promise you, the cemetery is filled with people who thought that money would buy them happiness. The cemetery is full of them. So then, for the mu'min, for the one who says, Amantu billahi wa rasuli, then taqwa is the key to every aspect of us. It's infused in everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us body and soul, and He commanded us to worship Him mind, body, and soul. Very quickly, in the hadith of Jibreel, which we're all familiar with, right? The angel, a man comes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whose hair is extremely black, whose clothes are extremely white. He has no signs of travel. He sits next to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with his leg next to his leg, with his thigh next to his thigh. Can you imagine? Next to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sitting that close. Allahu Akbar. His smell. Allahu Akbar. He sits close to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi, and he asked him. Right? In one narration, he asked him first, what is Islam? And another one, he asked him first, what is Iman? He asked, when he answers, of course, he tells, you have spoken the truth. Right? You've spoken the truth. Umar ibn Khattab is like, I'm amazed. He asked the question and then he tells them, right, you've spoken the truth. He asked him, of course, what is Islam? He gives him the 5 pillars. I'm paraphrasing for the sake of time. He then asked him, what is Iman? He gives him the 6 articles of faith. After that, he says, what is ihsan? And he tells him to worship Allah, seeing Him, though you see Him not, know that He sees you. Right? Now, in the case of Islam, this is about the body. This is the aspect, the aspect of how are you going to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your body. When it comes to the matter of Iman, how are you going to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala according to your mind? How are you literally going to mold and shape your mindset upon the belief of Allah, belief in the angels, belief in the books, belief in the prophets, belief in qadar, wa yawm al-akhir? How are you literally going to shape your mind and your thinking, your viewpoint, your everything that is what I consider your sub thoughts and your above thoughts? The subconscious mind, to develop your subconscious mind and your conscious mind based upon those 6 articles of belief. How are you going to formulate that? And then lastly, the aspect of ihsan is, yes, there are 2 aspects of ihsan. One of them is tazkiyah, meaning that how are you going to purify your nafs? How are you going to literally put those nafs into check so that they don't interfere, right? They don't come between you and your real self. How are you literally going to meet your needs while at the same time not becoming overpowering? Of sleep, too much food, carnal desires at the wrong time, so forth and so forth. You get my point, right? Tazkiyatul nafs, your desire for lying, all of that. And then the next one is tasawwuf. These are the 2 aspects of ihsan. Tazkiyah and tasawwuf. Tazkiyah is the purification, but tasawwuf is now how are you going to embody the qualities of al-Mustafa? How are you going to embody, how are you going to beautify your soul? How are you going to prepare it for that moment where you return to Allah Azza wa Jal? In this understanding, what we know about that is that Allah Azza wa Jal is saying, okay, you have your body, you've got to worship in body, you've got to worship in mind, you've got to worship in soul. At the end of this narration, the beautiful one walks away, right? He goes away. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells him, go after him. He comes back, Ya Rasulullah, and says, if he's vanished, he says, do you know who that was? Allah and His Messenger know best. Said, this was Jibreel coming to teach you your deen. Now, deen from dayan, which means that this is your debt. This is what you owe to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? This is what you must do in order to bring back this full relationship. There's more to we would spend the whole week. going through this concept of what we owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has united us in this gathering and in this place with these group of people from all over, subhanallah. Praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for answering our dua in the way that He has answered our dua in this moment. So He answers, Allah and His messenger know best. He says, this is Jibreel coming to teach you your deen, meaning that all of these aspects, all of this, the part of that's your Islam, the part that's connected to your body, the part of your iman, that's part that's connected to your mind, the part of your ihsan, the portion that's connected to your soul, your personality, your character, all of that is encompassing of what we consider Islam, of how we consider ourselves practicing. So therefore, you cannot be Muslim and say, okay, well, I'm praying and I'm fasting, right? But I'm not working on myself, right? That actually, no, it doesn't work that way, because then your prayers will be empty. Right? I'm praying, but I don't really believe in Allah. There are a group of people. They recite their book, right? They actually adhere to certain religious law, but they don't even believe in Allah. You know those people? They tend to bomb and kill children and women. It'll come to you, inshallah. Some of you are like, what? The one who knows, whisper to her or whisper to him and tell him what I'm saying. So they recite the book. They follow religious law. They claim a certain identity, but they do not believe in Allah at all. Like self-professed atheists, right? Why do we do it? For like social or worldly currency, so that we may be known by something, but also because it benefits other people who believe in God. Allahumma musta'an. And then lastly, in the case of ihsan, right? So if you miss any one of them, you don't have deen. If you're lacking in any one of them, you don't have deen. So when we look at the case of taqwa, this is simple. Is there any moment in your life that Allah Azza wa Jalla is not present? Never. Right? Never. Like Shaykh Ibrahim al-Adham said to his student, when the student came to him and said, oh Shaykh, give me permission to commit zina. Like, I know there must be some loophole. Some faces are like, what? He asked his Shaykh? I mean, someone asked the Prophet, it's no problem. Right? He's like, there must be some loophole. We're in a new day and age and time. You understand, like, this is my nafs. You know that I'm young. I know there's some fiqh loophole, right? There's some fiqh opinion that would give me permission, right, to sleep with my cousin. People like, give me a fatwa. And he's like, yes, I'm going to give you permission, right? I'm going to give you permission. And he's like, yes, under one condition. It's like, only one? Let's get what? Do it outside Allah's dominion. Where are you going? Outside of Allah's dominion. Even if you somehow got a ticket. What's his name? The head of the plane, Virgin Atlantic. They wanted to go to like Richard Branson. Right? If you got a ticket from Richard Branson, and you're like, we're going to another planet. We're gonna hang out on the moon. You are still inside of Allah's dominion. So he's like, Shaykh, that's not possible. Obviously, there's no place outside of Allah's dominion. Alhamdulillah, he had that much understanding. Right? Some people don't have that much. So then he said, okay, no problem. If you can't meet that condition, there's a lesser one. There's a lesser condition. And if you can meet that one, go ahead. Do it while you're not sustaining yourself on Allah's provision. So he's like, wait, what do you mean? Like, don't eat Allah's food. Don't eat the food that Allah provides. Don't drink the water Allah provides. Don't use the energy Allah provides. And don't use the body that Allah provided. The body that Allah gave you, right? That would have the strength and the wellness to perform such an act. Don't use it. But go ahead. Feel free. Meanwhile, commit zina. Right? While on none of his provision. So then, of course, what would you say? Right. What part does Allah not provide? What portion is Allah not giving me? So then the Shaykh responded, then don't you feel shy to commit sin while you're in his dominion, sustaining yourself on what he provides for you? And you have no sense of shyness, no sense of hayat in front of him? Now, many of our teachers would define this like this is encouraging him to have taqwa. No. Taqwa is bigger than that. Taqwa would have started long before that. Taqwa would have said, Ya Allah, I love you so much. If there's anything that would jeopardize this relationship that I have with you, Ya Rabbi, I'm not even interested. Anything that would even introduce the possibility of there being a diminishing in this relationship, I'm not even interested. I don't even want permission to do it because I don't want to do it. It literally is saying, Ya Rabbi, I'm so in love with you, right? That when you give me permission, that's when I will do it. And if you didn't give me permission, I'm not even asking for permission. Now, in order to develop it, you know the things. I don't have to tell you the things to develop taqwa. I'm willing to bet my life, and betting is haram, that you know what it takes to develop taqwa. So don't let me die today. Tell me what it takes for you to have taqwa. What do you need to do to have taqwa? To have a relationship with Allah subhanahu. Hey guys, I bet my life. I need you to step up. Say again. You got to fight your nafs? Yes. What else? Fasting. Of course, fasting. For Allah's sake. What else? Following Allah's commandments. Right? You got to follow his commandments. Where are you going to find them? Brothers, where are you going to find Allah's commandments? You're going to find them in the Quran. So you're going to follow the Quran. Who's going to show you exactly how to do it? So you're going to follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Alhamdulillah, ya Rabbi. They answered, please give me long life. Right? So yes, you already know what are the things that you need to cultivate that relationship. It's really simple. Imagine you're married, okay? Maybe inshallah you're already married. Can you have a relationship with your spouse when you're just like, I only talk to you because I have to? And I'm going to talk to you for like 5 minutes. I'm going to rush through whatever it is I have to say. I don't really actually have time to listen to what it is you have to say, right? But I talked to you. I said what I was supposed to say, and I'm out. You think you're going to have a great relationship? Do you think your wife is going to, I'm going to ask you brothers, do you think your wife is going to be like, I love you so much. You're so good to me. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, what's going to be the status of your relationship? 0, exactly. It's like 0. So imagine I only make salah because I have to. I just recite what it is I have to recite. Once I salam out, I'm good, I'm done. I'm not thinking about you, and I don't have time to sit and contemplate what it is you have to tell me. What's the status of your relationship? What's the status of like, okay, that person, your wife wrote you a letter, like this beautiful love letter, right? And it's like expressing their love for you and things that, just all the good stuff. And you read it like, hey babe, I love you. You're really doing great. See you later. All right, bye. I read it. She asked you, did you read it? I read it. What'd you think of it? Like, did you contemplate what I said? I read it. Like, but did you think about it? Like, did you spend time with it? I read it. So like, did you ponder? Like, did it make you feel anything? I read it. That's us. I read it. Did you contemplate it? No, I didn't contemplate it. I just thought by reading it, you were going to give me some points, right? You were going to love me because I read it. Taqwa is, why did you read it? From the beginning, Ya Rabbi, I want to hear what you have to say. I want to recite what you have to say. I want to connect with you by what you have to say. And then I want to sit and contemplate over the meanings of what you have to say. I want to think about how it directly applies to me, because I know this letter is for me. It's literally taking time with the Quran. Now, the amazing thing about the Quran is that when you recite it, like with intention, with mindfulness, when you recite it with the intention to become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you recite it with the intention for it that you may be illuminated by its light, that you may be increased by its wisdom, when you recite it for the intention of having an intimacy with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what it gives back, you can't even imagine. If you were like, Ya Rabbi, I need you. And so I'm coming to you, and I'm coming to you by your book. Then it's going to call all the angels, at least 70,000. It's going to say, you know what? SubhanAllah, this servant needs protection. There's some things this servant has not seen. There's some elements of evil and darkness around this servant in the dunya that we're just going to walk with this servant and push back. Push back the darkness, push back the harm. That when you sit with the Quran, really, it walks with you. That when you recite it with intention and mindfulness, it lives with you. So it's not, but again, it's with mindfulness. It's with the intention of engagement. Salah. I know that most of us are treating Salah as a one-way conversation, but it's not. Salah is not a one-way conversation. Salah is, Ya Arab, first of all, I'm literally bringing myself to you, Ya Allah, because I know you and only you can actually transform me. I know that you have the power to enlighten me. I know you have the power to make me better. It's like literally laying down on the doctor's table and saying, I've got heart disease, right? It's better than that. I've got heart disease, and I'm asking you to remove whatever the diseases are in my heart. That's what approaching Salah is. Right? You have, when you get ready for surgery, there are a number of things you have to do. In this case, right? It's like, okay, let me make my wudu, let me scrub up, right? Then I've got to make sure I have the right clothes on. I want to be, I want to, like, basically I'm doing all the things so that when I enter into this realm, when I enter into this sacred realm, because it becomes a sacred realm, I'm entering into this sacred conversation. As you recite, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending you messages as well. But if you're speeding through it, if you're not taking time in your sujood, in your ruku', if you're not taking the time, subhanAllah, after to sit, make your dhikr, you're literally cutting the conversation short. You're fasting the same. We all know the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever fasts, right? But they commit sin while they're fasting, they lie, they're gossiping, they backbite. You're not fasting, you're just hungry. But if you do it with mindfulness, right? Now, some of us are like, I'm fasting because I'm going to get, I'm going to get some new cellular rejuvenation. It's going to like reduce my insulin, right? I'm going to lose weight, right? That's not fasting. Maybe from like the worldly perspective, no, you're just like, you're on a food regulation, right? But if you're fasting for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Yes, you're going to get those physical benefits, but then all of the spiritual benefits, literally what you're saying is, I'm emptying my heart of all of the gossip and the ghiba and the lying and the ill intentions and the ghafla, and saying, Ya Allah, my heart is for you. So I'm emptying my heart of all of that. I'm literally telling my nafs, listen, you need to chill out. Right? You're on a serious, you need to be on a budget. Like your coffee habit alone is about $24 a day. Right? Just your coffee habit alone. You are just consuming too much. Let alone your appetite for just, being in people's lives and social media, and like your appetite for gossip. And I know you're thinking, no, I don't gossip that much. But like the thing between like Drake and Kendrick Lamar and, and this, and then what's happening? Oh my goodness, I think Beyonce is in the Illuminati. Then, like you all in people's business, right? Who got married? I think somebody got married. Somebody's getting divorced, right? Oh my God, what happened between J-Lo and Ben Affleck, right? Can't believe it. You're all into people's business, all in their details. Right? How do I know? Because it's all over my phone. Right? Now, when you click it, now you're getting all the details. Sadly, I have to tell the truth, I don't know nothing about Drake and Kendrick. My 13-year-old is driving me nuts. I'm making dua. Make dua with me. Because I'm like, Okay. So, but the point is, it's like we're all into people's lives. We have gossip of the heart. We have ghiba and namima going on in our hearts. Fasting is about empty all of that out. Fasting is about remove that. Because there are other things you need to pay attention to. Now, let's get into taqwa as it relates specifically to your personal growth. I mean, it should, there's certain aspects of it that are obvious. That taqwa is that scrupulousness that's going to cause you to start to have, number one, a certain mental regulation. It's going to actually start creating checks and balances for what you allow to come into your thoughts and what you don't allow to come into your thoughts. Right? It's literally going to, when you have taqwa, you're literally, or when you're exercising taqwa, because remember, there's a difference between I'm practicing something and I reach that maqam. Having taqwa and being a muttaqi is different. Right? Most of us, subhanAllah, we're practicing acts of taqwa. We're doing things that are connected, right, to taqwa. We're on the path of taqwa, but being established in the maqam to be a muttaqi, to be from the muttaqin, that means you have gained consistency in it. It becomes, that's who you are. Right? So it's different to have, like, I have siddiq, I'm being truthful, but then to be from the siddiqeen, meaning that's who you are. That's who you are identified are. That is your identity. Allah is so beautiful that He gives us identities in like the highest realms of things. Right? So you can be sincere, you can practice acts of sincerity, but to be from the mukhlisin, So what we're talking about is how do I then practice enough acts of taqwa with consistency, with istiqamah, so that I may be in the maqam of the muttaqeen. So the first thing is that the acts of taqwa you already mentioned to me, right? But now the acts of taqwa in your mental state is you've got to have literally, Imam Ghazali basically talks about that there are different emotions, right, that you have. And there are different, what I would consider animals inside of you. There is the dog, there is the pig, and the alchemy of happiness. There is the dog, there is the pig, there is the human being, it's not an animal, and there is an angel force, right? These are all forces inside of the human being. Now, most of us would say, oh my God, get rid of the dog, get rid of the pig, right? They have their place, so just hold tight, right? You need a guard dog. You need someone who barks when something that basically is like, this is unsafe. You need something that says, now, of course, the dog that is out of control, when anger, right, is out of control, when the pig leads you to pornography, or that or just over consuming, it is a problem. It has its place. But in this case, right, don't let it consume you. Don't let the dog be who you are. But having the guard dog in your consciousness, you need it. Right? Until you get to a certain level. So this guard dog literally needs to say, at the gate. Number one, about negative thoughts. Obvious, we already talked about thoughts that don't even concern you regarding other people. That this is the least of iman. The least of iman is that you don't concern yourself with that which is not your business or your affairs. That's considered the least of iman. The next aspect is that literally, when I say negative thoughts, meaning you don't talk to yourself in a way you would not allow other people to talk to you. You don't, subhanAllah, put yourself down. You don't, you don't call yourself names. You don't beat yourself up to the point that you are literally unworthy. You have created a level of shame inside of you that paralyzes you from actually committing good, because you've told yourself, I'm not worthy of this. Now, when the case of not worthy, what about this? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Taqwa is to say, it doesn't really matter if I'm worthy of this. It doesn't really matter if I deserve this or I don't deserve this. Allah is deserving of me doing it. Allah is deserving of my ihsan. Allah is deserving of my effort. Allah is deserving of me getting over myself. Allah is deserving of me getting out of the way. Whether you deserve it or don't deserve it, don't worry about that. We'll find out that, inshallah, on Yawm al-Akhir. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us worthy. Because the moment we convince ourselves that we're actually worth, yeah, I deserve it. I deserve to be here. The moment you do that, you become undeserving. Honestly, subhanal khaliq. Allah has given us more than we could ever ask for. So it's not so much, so literally, vanity and being conceited is the flip side of low self-esteem. Both of them are over-concerned with themselves. Taqwa is to say, get out of your own way and let Allah reign. Let your concern be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if your own thoughts are preventing you, right, from doing that good thing, doing that great thing, being that great person, then you got to get rid of those thoughts because they don't serve you. Now that's different from self-correction. You have to have self-correction. I can say, Aisha, that wasn't cool. Right? I can say to myself, you didn't do the right thing there. It would have been better had you done this. I can say to myself, and that wasn't the full truth. That was a lie. I can say to myself, no, you shouldn't do that. I can have self-blame. As a matter of fact, it's necessary. In order to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's necessary. You have to have self-blame. But self-blame is not the same as self-shame, and it's not the same thing as being self-destructive. Shame is when I have just convinced myself that the things that have been done to me, or that my trauma is who I am, and therefore I'm really not, I really shouldn't do anything or show up in any way, in any level of strength, or in any level of courage, or I'm just too ashamed. Right? It is consumed. So shame must be removed. When you get over that first part, you get over that first hurdle, right? When you get over that first hurdle of, like, you got to coach yourself, even. You got to have a voice in your head, right? That pushes you further. That says, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. What is Allahu Akbar? Allah is greater than this, whatever I'm telling myself. Allah is more worthy, right? Allahu Akbar. Allah is the one who's worthy of the good action, worthy of the praise in this situation. Allahu Akbar. That then pushes you to do more, to think better, to read more, to study more, to further yourself more. Then when it comes to the matters of emotional regulation, again, there is in emotional regulation, all emotions inform you. All emotions are there to inform you. Emotions inform your heart about the condition of your soul. Right? So they're there to teach you. When you are angry about something, it teaches you literally something that you are passionate about. So if it's a righteous anger, that's a good thing. But you have to be careful to notice. You got to pay attention very carefully, because this is the portion of taqwa, that taqwa is directly also connected to how very carefully you watch yourself. You cannot develop a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're noticing Allah, but you're not noticing your relationship, your end of it. So taqwa is about a deep self-awareness, that you are watching yourself. You're watching your thoughts. You're watching your movements. Yes, you're watching your relationships. You're watching how you talk to people. You're noticing your own responses. This chair, la ilaha illallah. So there's a high level of self-awareness. So that part, self-awareness, then should become some level of emotional regulation. So now I notice that, when someone says this particular thing, right, I get offensive, right? I get defensive. I'm offended, I get defensive. Right? Why is that? Ask yourself, why? Why is that, Someone said, well, that's a trigger for me. Well, why is it a trigger? What happens if we remove the trigger? No one else is responsible. This person pushed my button. Well, let's get rid of the button. How do you do that? Emotional regulation. If I notice, okay, when this person says something or this person enters into a room, I start to feel, a certain way. Why? Investigate it. Every single emotion teaches you something. Shame teaches you, of course, there's a certain trauma that you need to get, that there, you need to work on how you're going to get over it. Maybe sometimes it's something that you need to forgive yourself for. Forgiveness is to give up hope of a different past. That it's past, the only thing I can do is to act better in order to make the future different than the way it was in the past. There's a difference between I understand myself. I understand, okay, I did that because this happened in my childhood, or this is what it made me feel. Okay, now you're no longer a child, right? Now you are an adult who's actually able to think about it and to evaluate it differently. How will you respond now as an adult? I can understand why I did it, which will allow me to forgive myself, but it doesn't give me an excuse to behave like that because of what happened in the past. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? I can understand my whys, but my whys don't become my excuses. They just inform me for why I actually need to be better. They just inform me of the steps I need to take or the development I need to make in order to be better. What are the places in me that are broken, alhamdulillah, so I can heal? That's what a lot of some emotions inform us about. Where am I broken? I look to the wound, that's where the light comes in. If you ignore it, you're going to find that test over and over and over and over again. Shaitan knows exactly where the chink in your armor is. He can get you mad about the same thing every time. He can get you frustrated about the same thing every time. He can get you, oh, you're on your way to do a good deed. All he has to do is flash that memory right back to you, and he's going to stop you from doing that good deed. All he's got to do is whisper to you about why you're not good enough because you did this, and he's got you. Until you go right back to that wound and say, it's time for me and you to have a conversation. It's time for this part of me. It's time to patch this up. It's time to seal this crack. And one of the greatest dhikrs for that is Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And not just from the tongue, making dhikr from the heart. You allow that memory to come, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. If it's something that shuts you down, something that someone was overly harsh, oppressive to you, Ya Latifu, Ya Latif, Ya Latifu, Ya Latif, Ya Latifu, Ya Latif. You bring Allah in the equation. Ya Allah, come between me and my heart. Ya Rabbi, come between me and my memories. Ya Rabbi, come between me and my nafs. So allow yourself to feel the emotion. Don't ignore them. That's not healthy. You need to know it. You need to see it. Why? Because now let it tell you about a certain condition of your soul. You gotta let it inform you fully. If you ignore it, you won't learn. If you let it take you so far, you become blind and drunk with the emotion, you won't learn. You let it come up, you study it. Don't even respond to it. You're angry. You can feel it. Okay, what happens when I get angry? My palms are sweating. My heart is racing. I'm seeing red. I'm thinking about all the things I'm going to break in this room. Why? Interrogate yourself. Interrogate your nafs. Interrogate your emotions. Why? Why are you angry about that? And don't peel the layer. You won't get there all at once. Allah is more deserving of me getting over this. Allah is more deserving of me investigating this. And I'm definitely not going to Jannah, right? I feel a sense of kibr. I'm angry because, or I feel arrogant because I feel that I deserve this. This is what you should give me. This is what I should have. This is how you should serve me. Oh, this is how you should speak to me. Well, why? Why? And be honest with yourself. Because if you know, I'm not getting out of this dunya alive, I'm going to face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just with my deeds, but with who I am mostly. The deeds will be weighed. But what's going to testify is who you really are. Because they're going to be weighed with, okay, now let's talk about the sincerity of it. Let's talk about the truth of it. We see the face of the deed, but what's underneath it? So that's, once you can you're aware of it, then you interrogate it. Once you interrogate it, now you can begin to, like what I said, turn up the volume or turn it down. Right. If it's your confidence that's too low, you need to turn it up, because your confidence is not about you. It's about your belief in what Allah Azza wa Jal can do for you or through you, using you. Right. So if that's the case, you have to turn it up. If it's arrogance, you need to turn that off. Jazakallah and khair. Allah mubarak. Now, how do those things show up in your relationships? How does taqwa show up in your relationship? Because the taqwa is about, Ya Rabbi, I'm so in love with you. I'm so in awe of you. I don't want to do anything that displeases you. I don't want to do anything, say anything, be anything that displeases you. So that means I have to be aware of how am I speaking to people? How come every time I talk to you, you always get so, right? Every time I try to talk to you, you always behave like this. Maybe you're stirring their ego. Maybe it's your tone. Maybe I need to become more aware of, not necessarily if you're responding that way, it's something I'm doing. How can I check myself? That's in every single relationship. Brother, sister, wife, husband, parents, every single relationship. Never allow your tongue to speak to people from the eye that looks to people with criticism. Never allow your tongue to speak to people from the eye that has looked at them with criticism. Look at people with the eye of mercy, and your tone will change. Why? Why would you look at them with the eye of mercy? Because you are in need of Ar-Rahman. You are in need of His mercy. And I'm begging that He will look at me with mercy. And it helps if you call Him Ya Rahman often. You're going to have less verbal conflicts, less arguments, less confrontation with people. Also, when you see that, Ya Rabbi, you are the doer. So if you're talking to someone, you're having a difficult conversation with someone, do not speak to their mind even. There'll come a time for that, and that's a different conversation. Speak to their heart. Even whatever it is, speak to their heart. Their heart will speak to their mind. You speak to someone's heart, it jolts them in a different way. They respond differently. It's very difficult to respond harshly when your heart has been spoken to. You have something tough to say, don't look to the person's, don't speak about the person's behavior so much. Speak to what affected you. Speak to their heart. Don't stir people's egos. When you stir someone's ego, it's from your anger, from your entitlement. But when you're thinking, Ya Rabbi, my tongue will testify for me. My heart in this moment will testify for me. This moment will testify for me. When on Yawm al-Qiyamah, what do I need it to say? Ya Rabbi, will my interaction with this person, and of course it will, affect my relationship with you? Will this moment bring me nearer to you or farther away from you? Will it draw me closer to you or or put more veils? So it should affect every single one of your conversations, from work conversations to family conversations, how you talk to people. Obviously, taqwa will affect your goals. You must have, I'm going to end with this, inshallah, we'll have some Q&A, bi-idhni Rabbi, that I want you to be into the habit. Intention, bin-niyya salihat. Intention. What are you doing and why are you doing it? Constantly asking yourself, what are you doing and why are you doing it? What are you doing and why are you doing it? And you say, well, I'm just gonna drink this coffee. Why? Ya Rabbi, bless me with the sweetness of Iman. My teachers, they used to drink coffee, subhanAllah, in religious gathering. I want to do as they did. Bismillah. I want to benefit from the Fatiha and coffee. Bismillah. Ya Rabbi, you commanded in the Quran to eat and drink of that which is halal. Bismillah. I'm going to work. Why? I need some money. What do you need money for? Ya Rabbi, so that I may not be from amongst those who are humiliated. So that I could be a means by which other people benefit. So that I could help and so I could give sadaqah jariyah, so I could, whatever it is, to serve you, to benefit, because that's my tawakkul. That's my adab with you. I work, Ya Rabbi, because of my adab with you. I know that you will provide for me, subhanAllah. But this is my adab with you. To leave the world better than which I found it. Ya Rabbi, every day, what am I doing? Ya Rabbi, I'm seeking you. I'm stepping outside of this house to expose myself to your mercy. Asking, Ya Rabbi, as I walk, that you will expand my heart, illuminate me with a light from your light, a guidance from your guidance. I'm just moving in this world, Ya Rabbi, I'm your prisoner. I'm going to worship you however you command me. Let every word I say, let every breath I take be a means by which I'm worshiping you. That I benefit your creation. Every single thing. بِنِيَّةٍ صَالِحَةٍ سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Inshallah, we want to do Q&A. 10 minutes to Isha? Okay. So we can do 7 minutes of Q&A. Is that okay with you guys? Do you have questions? Yes. Wow. Do it. It's 9 o'clock. La ilaha illallah. Yes. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You mentioned this a little bit, especially with like the gossip thing. How do you approach consumption? Because we, just as people living in today's universe, by nature are kind of always consuming, whether that's news or gossip or shopping or consuming or we're spending large amounts of our time and our money on consumable goods, whether those are tangible or non-tangible. So how do we approach that with kind of a mindfulness lens?
Well, one of the things is like you have to consume less, right? You have to eat less, socialize less. And so you also don't want to let your phone be the first thing that you look at in the morning, right? Don't let the phone be the first thing you see. The other thing is set times for your phone. And you actually have to kind of, if you make the intention, I'm becoming more aware of how I spend my time, then even to say, okay, don't do mindless scrolling. Don't spend way less time on social media. Only what do you need it for? Right? If it's just like I'm just scrolling, which has become like our culture, right? To just scroll. It's actually something we must interrupt because it does waste time horribly. Oh, okay. Right? It wastes time horribly. So that has to be something that you reduce. And then I would say when it comes, because you're able to put certain settings, right? For what it is that will come up on your feed. So if there are Islamic lectures that will come up on your feed, or there's Quran that will come up on your feed, right? Take time and to listen. But also, if you have to, set a time with yourself. Yeah, I've been scrolling for like an hour. That's like way too much. And what have I really consumed? Have I really learned anything? Did I really gain anything? So then khalas, I need to make that less. So it's also the mindfulness in and of itself will actually cause you to reduce it on its own. And you have intention to say, I need to consume less. I need to socialize less. And when you become more aware, like, Ya Rabbi, does this take me closer to you? On Yawmul Qiyamah, where my eyes in this moment testify for me or against me. If you keep that in your mind, the reduction of your consumption will reduce by its nature. You're welcome. That's what makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, bismillah. Last question. Yes, bismillah.
How should one maintain a sense of taqwa in the midst of spiritual low point?
I'm really glad you said that. That was something I actually wanted to talk about. So especially in the time that we live in, and I hope inshallah you'll come to resistance. We'll talk about resilience tomorrow. But part of that taqwa in a low point is that sometimes we can get to such an emotional low point, which becomes a spiritual low point, where we think all kinds of negative things, right? We think even like, Ya Rabbi, it can get to the point of even, Ya Allah, can I just go? Can this earth just open up and swallow me inside? But also the realization that saying, Ya Allah, you put me here. And there's something that you want me to do. And my life and my death are for you, and my life and my death are in your hands. Right? So really it's about dua in that time. It's about literally asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and um, not dua, what I would say necessarily in the traditional sense, but dua in terms of having a conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, for example, you may not actually be able, I know we've all had moments, and even Nabi Allah Nuh, right? That he had this moment where it was just like, inni maqluban fantasir. Like his dua is like, I'm overwhelmed, help. Like that's the whole dua of Nabi, like, I'm overwhelmed, help. Right? And sometimes your only dua is, Ya Rabbi, help. Right? And so I don't want to necessarily say, okay, make all of these dua, because when you're not in a high spiritual point, you don't have all of that, right? I'm not saying even sometimes I like all of the, asma and husna. That's good when you're able, but when you're in a place like, this is all I got, right? That'll be help, right? And I would say, don't stop talking to Allah. The same way we talk to ourselves, talk to Allah. Ya Rabbi, I'm in trouble. Like, this is too much. Right? So part of taqwa in that case is just don't cut the ties with Allah. Just keep talking to Him. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. When he finishes the adhan, we'll make dua, so we'll get the blessing of the dua between the adhan and the aqama, because the dua between that time is accepted. So inshallah, when he finishes, we'll make dua. لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم رب هذه دعوة تامة والصلاة القائمة آتنا سيدنا محمد حبيب مقام محمود علي الرحيم. يا الله.
We're making dua together. If you would like to stay for the dua, please sit down. Otherwise, please head to the prayer hall. Jazakallah khairan.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا حبيبنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا محمد. يا أولا أولين يا آخر آخرين يا ذو قوة متين يا راحم المساكين يا أرحم الراحمين. Ya Rabbi, we thank you for this gathering. Ya Rabbi, we thank you for making us from amongst those that are Muslim. Ya Rabbi, we ask that you please make us truly Muslim. Make us from amongst the mu'mineen, the mu'sineen, Ya Rabbi, the muttaqeen. Ya Rabbi, make us from amongst those that you have given a complete and total and complete pardon. Ya Arhamur Rahimeen. Ya Rabbi, we ask that you please forgive us for our mistakes and our shortcomings, our past, our present, and possibly our future sins, the ones we did knowingly and the ones we did not unknowingly, Ya Rabbi, the major of them and the minor of them. Ya Rabbi, by your mercy and your greatness and your power, Ya Rabbi, please remove the stain of sin from upon our hearts, from upon our souls. Ya Rabbi, remove the stain of our sin, Ya Rabbi, from the hearts and the character of those that we've harmed. Ya Rabbi, we ask that you please save us from the torment of the grave and the punishment of the hellfire, even for the blink of an eye. Ya Rabbi, give us the best in this dunya and the best in the akhirah, and bless us to be from amongst those that you love. Ya Rabbi, and grant us the company of those that love you and the company of those, Ya Rabbi, that you love, Ya Rahmanur Rahimeen. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Habibina Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Allahumma ameen. عفوا منكم جزاكم الله خير سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I hope to see you tomorrow inshallah for resilience بإذن ربي.